Oh, hello growers, welcome to the garden. It's September, a month of endless harvests, vigorous growth of both cultivated plants and weeds, and another wave of bright, colourful displays. In this month's video, we're going to be planting both ornamental and edible bulbs, making sure our bushes come back with more flowers and even more fruit, sowing our September seeds for more harvests to enjoy in the autumn and early next year, and I'll try to answer the questions that you sent in. But if you have any questions at all about this show or your garden, leave me a message in the comments below. Just as we finish curing and storing our summer-grown onions and garlic, it's time to start thinking about next year's crop. So towards the end of the month, I'll be planting garlic and onion sets, and this year I'll be trying to grow a very special bulb that produces the world's most expensive spice. You can plant onion and garlic in November, perhaps even into December in some places. But to get the biggest bulbs and to help them split into individual cloves, it's best to plant garlic early in the autumn. I'm going to be growing a softneck garlic using cloves from this year's harvest, and if planted in the autumn and harvested next summer, should store into winter next year. And if I manage to get my hands on some, I'll also be growing elephant garlic, which strictly isn't garlic at all, but actually a leek. And as the name suggests, it grows absolutely enormous bulbs and really does need all the extra time you can give it. Planting in late summer or early autumn is relatively straightforward, but the secret is making sure that the soil isn't going to be waterlogged over the winter and that they are covered by a good layer of compost or mulch. That way you'll avoid having bulbs rotting or being badly damaged by frosts. In mild climates, that means it's fairly easy to grow in containers. Just be sure to use a light potting compost or add perlite to loosen it up. But if you're growing in the ground, particularly if it's a clay soil, then you could try mixing in some grit to improve drainage. Plant the cloves a couple of inches deep, making sure that the flat end is pointing down into the soil, the pointy end is facing upwards, and lightly cover and leave them to do their thing until the spring. But why am I so keen to get going on onions and garlic? Well, that's because now is the perfect time of year to get started on spring bulbs like daffodils and tulips. For the last 2 years, I've left it far too late to order bulbs, and I've ended up missing out and having to wait until May or even June before the garden would show a dash of colour. However, if we get planting now, then we might be able to see flowers in March, February or even in January. One bulb I'm particularly keen to grow this year are crocuses, but in particular Crocus Sativus, which is the saffron crocus. It's a perennial herb and the stigma of the flower is one of the world's most sought after spices. And gram for gram, it's the most expensive spice in the world today. Planting is much like onion and garlic, only I'll be planting them a little deeper, perhaps with 4 or 5 inches of soil covering the corm. And I definitely won't be planting this one in the open ground. I'll be growing them in containers, which I'll cover to keep the squirrels from digging up my edible gold. September is a time of year where if you look at your garden for too long, words like overgrown, disorganised or even untidy spring to mind. I know it is in my case anyway. Annual flowers have been spent and gone to seed, other plants might be losing their colour, and the growing conditions really are perfect this time of year. And the plants are mature enough to really capitalise on that. This raspberry bush, for instance, is grown completely unwieldy and I don't sit anywhere near it on a windy day. It's a summer fruiting variety and hasn't produced any food for a good few weeks. So now is a good time to cut back and prepare the plant for next year. On summer fruiting varieties, this year's growth will be where the raspberries form next year. However, these old brown canes from last year are now finished and need to be removed. This is only my second year growing raspberries, but the old brown canes that we want to remove should be a different colour to the ones we want to keep. That's how I'm going to identify them before cutting. But if you're unsure, you might also be able to see the remnants of this year's fruits. And now I just need to support the plant and stop it turning into an even greater mess. And speaking of messes, my lavender bushes have finished flowering and are now starting to sprawl over the edge of my garden beds. So one job for this month is to trim the bush into something more neat and tidy. They're a little old and they're starting to lose their colour, but they still have a really lovely smell, so I'm going to try and dry them off indoors. If you're anything like me, then September is a month where it becomes almost impossible to keep up and harvest all the food that the garden keeps producing. And if you need any proof, then this courgette or zucchini is a testament to just how quickly the garden can get away from you if you don't stay on top of it. In fact, this one is so big that I should probably stop calling it a courgette and start calling it a marrow. However, as the days begin to get noticeably shorter and the temperatures start to fall, growth will begin to slow and we become limited to harvesting hardier and hardier crops. So at this time of year, the range of seeds we can sow also becomes a lot narrower. This makes September a great month to shift focus away from fruits and roots towards leafier greens and salads. Some Asian greens and mustards like Mizuna are a good choice as they are winter hardy, so you can keep on picking them into next year. Similarly, winter lettuce can be started in September, and you can try varieties like Valdor, which can survive outside if protected by fleece. And while it is possible, it's getting a little tight to start this one from seed. But if you pop down the garden centre, you should be able to find trays of spring cabbages that you can plant out and let grow before it gets too cold and dark. They'll either be on the small side like these ones, or if you spend a little more money, they'll be more substantial and better placed to survive the winter. You can also sow calendula or pot marigold. This isn't going to get you a harvest before the frosts, but the plants should have a head start and flower earlier on next year, helping you fight off those aphids that might otherwise attack your broad beans. Conveniently, my volunteers that popped up in the spring have produced their seed and they've just about finished drying, so I'm already scattering seeds around the edge of my garden beds. And one more thing to do this month is to sow herbs in pots. My plan is to let them make the most of the direct sun, and when temperatures turn a bit cooler, bring them indoors and place them by the kitchen window. This is great for herbs like basil, which aren't at all winter hardy, and it's great for me because I can cook dinner without having to tread through the snow. Which brings us very neatly onto your questions. Earlier in the week, I asked you what garden problems you were facing or what tasks you've got coming up this month. And Abigail wrote in to ask, do you have any suggestions for edible indoor gardening or edible gardens on balconies? Would love to know how to make the most of the space that we have. Abigail, I think that's a great question, and I think herbs are probably the obvious choice here. Even supermarkets sell them in the winter. However, we do have a few more options. One of the first plants I ever looked after was a chili pepper plant on a north-facing windowsill. I didn't start it from seed, it was already established, but it did give me food. You might be able to extend your growing season this way by bringing a chili pepper plant indoors through the winter. But the main benefit of this approach is that you'll have a chili pepper plant ready to go next spring. Otherwise, you can grow microgreens and sprouts in a few days from seed. Spinach and rocket will grow indoors, although you might want to invest in some grow lights. And if you do go for artificial lighting, then a lot more options open up. I've seen people grow carrots indoors, but you can probably do radishes pretty easily. However, one thing I am going to try this year is growing peas indoors up the sides of my grow racks. And if it works out, I might make a video about it. September is the month where we start to properly think about planning ahead to next year. If we want to divide or relocate plants, we need to do it while the ground is still warm. If we want to save seeds, then we want to make use of the September and October harvests. And if we want to propagate strawberries, then now really is the time of year to do it. I'll show you how to do all of these things in an upcoming video, so do subscribe so you don't miss out. But if you're struggling to stay on top of all of these garden jobs, don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, I made this video here about how my full-time job makes it really difficult to grow all of my own food and what you can do to try and work around that. So be sure to check that one out, and as always, happy gardening.